Where are the clowns? Where are the clowns?
Where are the clowns?
Where are the clowns?
Where are the clowns? Where are the clowns?
Where are the clowns?
Welcome one last time to Where Are the Clowns? An interview series where we've been looking for clowns who are wearing the red nose in places where clowning is not very popular. This series is an initiative by Clown Spirit and was part of the Clown Spirit Fellowship with Barnaby King and Dan Rudolph. I'm Manish, your host for this interview series, and today, in the final episode of it, we're joined by the most wonderful Fif Fernandes from India and Canada. Fif is a certified laughter yoga teacher and a graduate of the Humor Academy, an initiative of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor in the US. With over 25 years of experience, Fif has facilitated workshops and classes for diverse groups, including doctors, nurses, social workers, CEOs, educators, and children with special needs. Her work also extends to teens, adults, and seniors, guiding them in discovering joy and cultivating happiness in their lives. As a co-founder of the MediClown Academy, Fif is a pioneer in the field of medical clowning, passionately dedicated to humanizing the medical profession. She believes that hospitals need not be somber. Instead, they can radiate laughter and lightheartedness. Through medical clowning, Fif transforms environments and helps patients and caregivers express their emotions in a healthy, joyful way. Her work highlights the inseparable connection between physical and mental well-being, bridging a critical gap in patient care with compassion and humor. A clown takes the ordinary and makes it absolutely absurd, Fif says, capturing the essence of her work. Therapeutic clowning is increasingly recognized as a valuable component of holistic patient care, and Fif Fernandes is at the forefront of this movement, proving every day that laughter truly is the best medicine. Our conversation was recorded earlier this year over Zoom, so we apologize for any sound interruptions you may hear. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Where are the clowns?
So where are you right now?
I'm on Vancouver Island in Canada, and I overlook Cowichan Bay out my window in the sitting room. In my bedroom, I overlook the bay and the forest, and in the back, I overlook a farmer's field.
Wow. So tell me again, why do you leave this and come to Oroville?
I love Oroville. I live in a forest in Oroville, but believe me, right now it's so much quieter where I am here. I live 4 houses away from a heron nesting site, and it's over 120 heron nests. It's an endangered species here, so it's protected. There's no street lights here, and you're not allowed to make loud noises. So it's really, really peaceful. And this neighborhood only has like 20 houses. Right now in Oroville, there's cranes, there's JCBs, which are bulldozers that are tearing down trees, sadly, building roads, motorcycles, all this stuff happening. But I love Oroville.
Okay,
I
so
love this.
so let me go back to the beginning to just understand. Um, did you always grow up? Did you grow up where you are right now? And
No,
how do you come about Oroville?
I was actually born in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam,
Mm-hmm.
in Africa. So I was born across the road from the ocean. So the water has always been very, very special to me. And my mom is both my mom and dad are from India, but my father was born in Tanzania. My mom was born in Karnataka in Mangalore. And then when she married my dad, we moved over to Tanzania and then to Canada. So I've lived in Canada since I was 5. I'm 65 now. So I lived in Canada since I was 5. And then of course, I'm on Indian heritage and I wanted to know about my culture. And one day I woke up in the middle of the night. I was 18 years old. And I thought, oh my God, I'm Indian, but I know nothing about being Indian. And so I want to go to India to quote unquote find myself. This is a long answer to your very short question.
I only
So
want long answers in this.
bless you, bless you, bless you. Sign of a true clown, one who deeply, deeply listens. So I woke up and I thought, oh, I need to find myself. I was 18. And that, when I graduated, I had a gift from my mom and dad to come to India. And they bought me a ticket for 4 months. And I said, no, 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 no. I'm going to be there for 2 years. And they said, Baba, you're not going to like it. I said, yes, I am. I'm going to live in the villages and with the slums and all of this. And they said, you'll be back in 4 months. I ended up being there almost 2 years. I fell in love with India. I fell in love with my people. And I found something so beautiful there. And the only reason I came back was because I ran out of money. And they sent me what's called a PTA, which is a prepaid ticket advice, which means you cannot reroute your ticket. You have to go from A to B, and that's it. So that's what I did. And I came back and I went to university uh, and I did my theater degree and whatnot. And then years later, um, when my husband Hamish and I went to India to take my mom, we went to hear the Dalai Lama and get initiations from His Holiness. And it was just amazing. And before that, we had been to a place in the south called Varkala
Yeah,
Beach. So yeah, it's beautiful, no? Or
yeah.
it was. We had said that we will go back there. Uh, and after doing this beautiful, beautiful empowerment with His Holiness, we were on our way over to Varkala. And one of the people that we had met there said, no, 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 you don't want to go there. It's all spoiled. It's all commercial. Go to Oroville. It's a place for artists. It's a spiritual place. So we changed our ticket that night. We fell in love with the place, but we did not know anything about it. And when we left there 7 weeks later, Hamish is an actor and a musician. So we were workshopping some things there at the Tibetan Pavilion. We thought, wow, when both our mums die, we'll come back here to live. And sadly, they did both pass away. Our fathers had passed away several years before then. So that's how we ended up being in Oroville. So it's a very long story.
Wow. Oh, there's so many things that are opening up, and I'm not even sure where exactly to take it next. But I think to begin with, if I understood correctly, your dad was also Indian, but was living and working in Tanzania.
That is correct. And he was born in Tanzania.
But he was of Indian heritage.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Because at that time, many of the Indians were going to Africa and working there. My
Right.
grandfather worked there as well, right? Hmm. So there's that strong pull to Tanzania. There's a strong pull to India.
Yeah.
There's a strong pull to Canada. And I'm sort of like in between.
And did your parents have this longing to go to India the way you did at the age of 18?
No, well, my mom was born there, so I mean, her sisters were there, or some of her sisters. Her
Yeah.
dad also died when she was 18, so there was always that pull to go back to the homeland. Dad never felt that same pull to go.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I think I'm not sure why I did, because my grandmother was there, when I was 18. She since passed away, shortly thereafter. But I think I dealt with racism only when I was 18, right?
Mhm.
So we'd moved to Canada and my mom was a teacher. She came there as a teacher, an English teacher. And I was exoticized. You know, it was like when you're in grade 1 and 2, everyone goes, "Oh, wow, you're from Africa? Do you know Tarzan?" And it was like, no. And then I decided to say, yeah, I know Tarzan. And so anyway, I don't know what I was saying. What was I saying?
The longing to come to India.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. And so I had never felt a pull to India. And then when I was in grade 12, I was crossing the road, never experienced racism ever. And I'd moved to a city. And as I was crossing the road, someone yelled at me and said, "You dirty Paki, go back home." And I thought, what? And there was this deep, deep sword that went through my heart. And I cried. And I thought, what? I don't understand this. And so I thought, I want to go back to find out about my culture. I don't know anything about my culture. You know, my mom wore a sari, but I grew up Roman Catholic. So I didn't know anything, right, about the Hinduism and the deep, deep culture. I'd gone back when I was 11 and, you know, we did the tourist things and went to palaces and went to Mysore and spent a great deal of time with cousins in Mumbai and whatnot. So, yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night and said, that's it, I'm going. And I did. And
Wow.
I've never regretted it. It was an amazing experience. When I was 18, I met Mother Teresa, who was just like, wow. Yeah. I met Father Bede Griffith, and Father Bede Griffith, uh, he's a poet, you know, and he wasn't Catholic. He was born a Protestant, but Wordsworth and the other poets just made him realize the beauty in nature. And he turned to Catholicism and became a Benedictine monk. And he had dispensation from the Pope to have an ashram in South India that involved Christianity, well, Catholicism, Hinduism, and Muslims in one area. And it was so beautiful. I spent a couple of weeks there, and it really, really filled my soul. And then Jean Vanier was another person. He worked a lot with people with disabilities here in Canada and in France. But there was a place there called Ashanikaten, a different Ashanikaten. But I spent time working with the people with disabilities, and I spent time with the Franciscan missionary. I spent time with the Franciscan Missionaries of Mary, which is a religious order. And I did a lot of work in the villages and in the slums. And it was an amazing, beautiful, beautiful experience. So that was when I was 18. That was when I was 18, 20. So those are really formative times, right?
Yeah.
Very formative, yeah.
What's the name of the ashram in the south of India?
I always just called it Father Bede's ashram. I don't know the name of it. He has since passed away, long passed away. But yeah, it's just beautiful. And I stayed with a Sister Christine, who's been one of my mentors, Franciscan Missionary of Mary. And we stayed in a little hut in the middle of a paddy field. And every morning at 4 or 5:30 in the morning, we would walk through the paddy field, and there'd be snakes there and whatnot. And we would then sit down for morning prayers and morning benediction, which were done in it was a Catholic prayer, but it was done in the Hindu style, right? So it was
Yeah.
a really beautiful coming together of the different spiritualities. Yeah.
Wow. And by now, were you already familiar with clowning? Or when did clown come into your life?
Clown came into my life when I was in university, formal clown. But I really believe that we're all born as clown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's really interesting when we think about clown, you know, yeah, clown came into my life later in a formal way through training and this and that. But, I've always sort of clowned, but didn't know that. I was in university. I think we did clowning and mask in one of our classes, but then again, very strongly, it came in, when was it, 1985? Yeah, 1985, when I did a workshop with Jan Henderson, who is a student of Richard Prochenko. So that was my first feeling with the Prochenko clowning, and I
Yeah.
made masks then. And it was an intensive 3 week, I think. Yeah.
Wow. Could you tell me a bit about your experience of clown through mask? Because I don't think I've never really spoken to anyone else who's done clown through mask, especially such a long time ago. So I did it 2 years ago, and you've
Oh,
done it how many years ago? 40 years ago.
did it, yeah, about 40 years ago,
But we did it at the
1989.
same age, when we were the same age. So how was it? What was it like for you? Um,
Oh,
yeah.
it was absolutely mind expanding. It was totally mind and body expanding. And when I did it with Jan, um, we did it in a community center. So we were commuting back and forth, right? When
Yeah.
I did it years later with John Turner, and both times I did it with my husband, my boyfriend then, my husband now. Um, we did it outside at the clown farm on Manitoulin Island in a big field and in a barn. So two very, very different experiences. But let's go back to being with Jan for the first time. I It was so expansive because I remember, feeling these colors going through me. And I thought, this is crazy. How do you have colors, reds and it's just red, red, or blue, blue? How do these colors go through you? And how do you form this mask with your eyes closed? They give you a clump of clay, right? And after there's a whole bunch of exercises that come before that, but this is sort of like the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
So you do a number of theater exercises, theater games, trust, intuition, a number of things.
Yeah.
And then uh, it takes you through a guidance of you get a clump of clay. And before that, you feel the colors, they say it, and you move to that color. It's very, very esoteric, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what did I do? It's like really whacked. And then you sit there and you don't open your eyes, but you feel and you form. And then when you're done, you know, you just know.
Yeah.
And there's that temptation to like open an eye and peek, but you don't, right? And when it's done, it's always astonishing. I mean, I've done, I did the 6 masks then. And when I opened my eyes, it was like, oh my God, is that what was inside of me that was created, that came out? And then after that, using that mask with the journey, the 6 different levels, um, took me to places that I never realized one could go, and saying goodbye to someone that you love. You know, at that point, I hadn't lost people. When I did it years later, I had, right? So there was a very different dynamics that was there. But it was really a formative time in my life, what I'd done in India, and then 5 years later, what I did in the workshop. Yeah, the clown workshop.
Wow.
And I still never thought I was a clown, because I've always thought clowns have to be funny, and I'm not.
So when did you realize? you're a clown? Or when do
I
you
don't
start,
think
when do you start calling yourself a clown?
I called myself a medical clown for a long time because I did clowning in the hospitals and with seniors and with kids. And it's only because I felt so insecure. I felt that I wasn't good enough. I
Mm.
didn't juggle. I mean, I'm the worst juggler in the world, you know. My unicycle, forget it. I just keep falling down on it. And, even though I have a barbed wire, not barb, good God, not a barbed wire fence, but a chain link fence that I go along. And I was just so bad. I
Mm.
was just so bad. But I still did all these things. I went to, clown conventions and whatnot. And then when I discovered the medical clowning, that's truly where my heart is, truly. But I use clown in all aspects of my life now, not just in the hospital and not just in, I mean, I don't do birthday parties. But people love to have clowns. I mean, they know clowns as the circus clown or the birthday party clown. But when you begin to introduce the wise clown, the crone, the shamanistic clown, you get so many different layers and levels. And then being in India, using the buffoon in that way, in that culture, and Komali, which in Tamil means the fool or the clown. So integrating, the fool, the joker, the teaser, all of this into the clown, because when we think clown, we think whiteface and Europe. And
Mm.
there's so much deeper for me. It's so much deeper than that. So
I mean,
when did I start calling myself a clown? I don't know. I do now, but it's usually with a preface of a medical clown. I guess I like to say that being a clown is like going to grade school, right? It's like we all have our education and then we specialize. We specialize in circus, we specialize in birthday, we specialize in mask, we specialize in hospital, carrying clown, but we all come from the same formation and then we expand from there. Clowning in So many people use clowning in working in corporates, for
yeah.
example, in corporations or with coaching or with children or with seniors. So we specialize.
Yeah. I mean, this is precisely why this interview series to also just break the idea of the white face European clown. Um, I haven't heard the Tamil word for clown before, and yeah, I think I want to dig in a bit deeper into the India aspect of it. So, I was a bit lost if when you started talking about the bouffon in India and things like that. Um, so so if I understood correctly, your first experience with clowning was the clown through mask that you spoke about?
Yes. Yeah. So it was Clown Through Mask or Baby Mask, taught by Richard Pachenko. And
Right.
I did that in Canada, more in a formal way. I did clowning in university, but it was part of a clown class or part of a movement class, right? Part of a movement class. And then we developed the clown, but not in the same way because in university, you've got your 3 hours, an hour a week type thing for one term. So it wasn't that deep dive as I did with Jan and
Yeah.
small change theory. Yeah.
And after doing it with Jan, how did the clown journey progress? And how long was it after that that you came to India?
After I did it with Jan, it was shortly thereafter, it was like that next year, my uncle was diagnosed with a rare cancer. And so I would go into the hospital and clown there. Um, So I've always done the clowning in the hospital. And then 4 years later, my aunt, who was a medical doctor, who actually graduated from Stanley in Chennai zillions of years ago, she developed a pancreatic cancer. And the only way that I could be with her without sobbing and crying, because I just adored her, was I would be in clown. So I would go dressed up in, very different sort of outlandish type clothes. Sometimes I wore a nose, sometimes I didn't. But when I was there in the cancer ward at the Tom Baker Cancer Institute in Calgary, the patients would come out and they would really enjoy the time that I spent with them. So I would just do this. And that's what it was. So I did that. Uh, and then I never really clowned so much until the 2000s. I'm still clowning, but in seniors' homes, but not in a paid kind of way, for events and whatnot. Um, and it wasn't until 2000 that I realized that there was actually a career, that you could make this into a career. So at that point, I began to volunteer at a children's hospital. And within a short period of time, a position became available, and I was hired as a therapeutic clown. And I actually started in emergency. So the emergency ward. And it was interesting because they wanted me, I couldn't, they wouldn't let me volunteer in emergency. I had to be a clown. So I was the first clown in Canada that actually was working in emergency as a clown, not with childcare, but on my own. That's partly because of the people that I knew that were in the unit in the emergency room. Yeah, emergency department. Yeah. And then after that, I came to India um, in 2011. And Hamish and I had come with, we didn't know if we were going to move there or not because both our mothers had passed away. And we'd said when they pass away, we'll look at coming here. So I would have been 51 at the time. And so we thought, yeah, let's come here. And then when people saw what I was doing, they asked me to start doing this in a more formal way. And in fact, Margarita Theophile wrote a wonderful article on us. And that was back in 2011, saying that we were going to come here and do some clowning. And it was like, okay, Margarita, or not Margarita, Marguerite, whatever. And then in 2012, Lock, Stock, and Barrel, we came over to Oroville and started to do it. But it wasn't until 2017 or 18 when we were given a grant, a beautiful award through the Yes Foundation as change makers. So out of 11,500 organizations across India, they selected us as one of those people or organizations that were doing the work that we're doing. And that's when it just sort of went everywhere, right? But yeah, so we'd been in the news in India since 2011. And at that point, I was doing clowning at a smaller scale in schools. I've always worked in schools, always worked in theaters, doing that, working with Adi Shakti, taking workshops there. So yeah, then it just went whew, because the press got a hold of what we were doing, and we were partnering with a university at that point, or we had an MOU with them, and as a result, we ended up going across India, and it didn't turn out the way I had envisioned it, because I'd envisioned that it would be like in Canada where, everyone comes and we're excited to take clowning. But in India, it's like, what is clowning? Why would I send my daughter or son to become a clown? They shouldn't be a buffoon. Why am I spending this money? They have to be a doctor. They have to be an engineer. They have to do this, all of this sort of stuff, right? So it was a little different. And so the clowning in India took on a very, very different form.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I I believe it's another person I interviewed in this series was Sabine from Lebanon, and she was also talking about her coming to India and having a very similar experience. And this was again, if I'm not wrong, in late 2010s. Sorry, late 2000s or early 2010s. And yeah, and I feel like somewhere this is also my experience of being in India, where yeah, you're not being stupid is like really looked down upon. Um, yeah, there's this sort of hero syndrome um that we have here. But
It
what ways did you find around it?
it really began to shift, and I think it began to shift because Oroville is a place of experimentation, and one of my mentors, Joss Brooks, who's one of the early Orvillians, was very excited about the work that I was doing and introduced me to Dr. Sai Lakshmi, who, bless her heart, passed away at a very young age. She was still in her 40s, but she was in charge. She founded ACAM Foundation, which meant oneness, and she brought us in to do one of their fundraisers, and that also pivoted, and it took us across India in the news of what we were doing, because we were no longer looked at as being buffoons, but we were looked at as people that were really, really shifting what we were doing in health, and not just with pediatrics. Then it became with the seniors, it became with people with disabilities. So there was a shift around that. And then we had government officials that came and did the courses with us. Not the full course, but they would come in just for a 2 hour workshop. Someone from the World Bank, who I'm still in touch with, very dear to me, Samek, he came and he said, wow, this is just heart expanding
Yeah,
and mind expanding. And so it took on a different flavor. And then the Sri Aurobindo Society wanted us to do things as well. And so there was a number of ways that it came about. But admittedly, when we first went to the Institute of Child Care, the CMO, the chief medical officer that was there, was invited. And it was just a small group of 13 people or whatever. And he sat with his arms crossed and he said, well, this is really, really well and good, but we don't do this in India. We don't laugh when we have diseases and this and that. We're very serious and the families come together. And we said, yes, sir. May we show you what we do? And we went around, and it was to not just the oncology pediatric ward, we went to the other wards, and he was astonished, absolutely astonished at the reaction, not only of the children, but the parents and the staff. And it was like, oh, so we started to go there more, right? And then there's other hospitals that, like I would just go in to see a friend. And I went into an adult facility with Hamish, my husband. We had our clown noses, and I have a puppet with me, and not a furry puppet, but one that I can wash off, right? I went into the hospital, and all of a sudden these people were like turning their heads, and they were laughing, and they were curious, and because I don't necessarily speak a whole lot of Tamil, it's just like, a few little smattering words here and there. They were filled with joy because we spoke the language of love, which
yeah,
was laughter, right? We laughed, and we, and we listened with our entire body, right? And so then that's where that shift started. So then government officials were coming in and inviting us to do things. And that was really lovely. And then schools. So we ended up doing something with the Sri Aurobindo Society, and there was 52 workers, not workers, but they were from the ministry in Haryana, I think. And they said, wow, we want you to come and do all our schools. But it was like, traveling every day. And it was like, oh, I can't do that, you
Mm.
know? And so we ended up having people come to us. We even did it with the army, if you can imagine, at the Andaman Islands. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what was that like?
Oh, it was magical and beautiful. I have to preface this a little bit. The day before that, we had done it with 44 child girl orphans. Okay.
Mhm.
And our hearts were just filled doing all this. And then, of course, I'm doing this with the men. And I'm going like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I go there and they melted within like a minute and a half. 44 men and women, four women, two women, sorry, the rest were men, melted. I walked in, with colorful clothes and a clown nose. And this was at the end of COVID. So I was still wearing a mask. They weren't, but they asked me to. So I did. And they loved it. We were on the dock looking out over the water outside. And if you can imagine, I do a ritual where we start with gathering the energy from our feet, from the ground, and pulling it up. And so we say Nandri Bhumi, which in Tamil means thank you, Mother Earth. So we thank Mother Earth, Nandri Bhumi, and then we come up our legs. And in India, people know this, but not anywhere else. Or I shouldn't say not anywhere else. In some places they don't. But as I go, I said, just imagine this color red. And then they see, I'm at my base chakra, right? And then imagine it orange. And imagine that there's this big sun that's there. And oh, and then you go green, and you're blue, and you're indigo and violet. And then after that, I said to all these men, I said, and now give yourself a big hug and say, I love me. And they did. They did. And so and then after that, you go, woohoo. So we've got all these men doing this ritual at the very beginning. And what I did was here's this, silver haired crackpot Indian woman being in front of them, giving them permission to do something that, of course, you just don't do in the army, right?
Yeah.
And then we went in and we started juggling. So we juggled with scarves. And then, we did a number of different games, like, creating something out of nothing and, doing it in partners, doing it in threes, doing it in fours. It was quite magical. It ended up being a 2.5, 3 hour session. So, and then this was quite funny. Like as I said, we were in the Andaman Islands, and then shortly after that, we'd gone to Port Blair and some of the other places, and we're doing workshops there. And we came back, and Hamish and I were just walking, and I said, "That place looks familiar." And he said, "Well, that's where we did the workshop." And I said, "No way." And he said, "Yeah." And so we started to walk down that road, and there was this car stop or this truck stop thing where you let cars go in and trucks go in. And this guy in this army outfit comes out and says, ma'am, 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 sir, sir. Oh, it was so wonderful. And he's talked to us for about 7 minutes. There was cars lined up. And we said, what about the person? No, 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 no. This is so good having you here. And so it was really magical. And many of the men then said, we took little bits of video and they said, oh, I want to send this to my wife or my girlfriend because they've never seen me like this.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a real sense of playfulness. And I'm still in touch with the captain that, sorry, I'm still in touch with the captain who had invited us to come. And the way we met him was also quite serendipitous. Right. So it's just magical the way things flow together when you're in the zone, in that zone. And you don't need to be a clown to be in that zone.
Yeah. I almost don't believe you right now. I don't.
Shall I send you a video of me doing this with the men on the dock?
I, I just I somehow don't believe that you were able to do clown with the Indian Army. That and at the same time, I'm extremely happy that that happened. Like, if because from how much of a little I know about army training, I think there's no other group that could use the sort of liberation that clown offers more than army men, because if I understand correctly, they're 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 taught to hold things, they're taught to do things in a very, very strict way. Um, and I can completely understand the sense of joy that they must be feeling after experiencing this sort of clown playfulness and liberation that I I just feel would be just so alien ever since they would have started the training.
Yeah, I think we were quite surprised as well. And then they want to do this again with the orphans. So then we would have the orphan girls, the girl child orphans, and the army together because just the week before they had given presents, but presents are not the same as your presence
Mm,
with someone, right? And I believe this went so well because of the captain that we had met who said, I would love for my men and women to experience this. Now, that coming from someone that was more high up, right, was mind blowing. And that again was one of these opportunities where we happened to be in Andaman Islands. And we were supposed to meet someone who was a professor from the Mysore University in archaeology. He happened to be there. And he said, oh, I'm meeting this travel person, this travel agent. So why don't you come? Well, we said, sure, great, wonderful. We went to this wonderful place. And of course, we got lost and went the wrong direction. So we missed the sunset, right? But we got there because we were late and this captain came early. There was that interaction that would not have happened. And he was very curious about what we were doing and what we did. And it was fueled, obviously, by the professor of anthropology. And when he heard what we did, and we talked about the spiritualness, because I didn't know he was a captain. He wasn't wearing his, captain clothes. He was just, wearing normal civvies, right? And when he heard about this, he said, I want to know more. And that's where I just said, well, would you like us to come and do a fun shop? And he said, would you do that? And we said, yeah, absolutely. So that's how it came about.
how long was this workshop?
Oh, it was short. It was just a half day. So 3.5 hours, three and a half
Yeah.
hours. Yeah.
I think that's even better because you sort of got them to open up in just three and a half hours. Um,
Oh my God, they opened up in minutes,
wow.
literally minutes. I'll send you this video and you will see it's just a 16-second clip. That's the first thing that I did with them was Nandri Bhumi. It's the first thing I always do with people
Mm,
is not always. I mean, sometimes I have belly dancing music. When I did something with sports coaches in Delhi, I was like, hello, sports coaches that have come from Barcelona and everywhere. You want us to do a clowning workshop with these like butch guys? I don't know about this. And they said, well, do what you normally do. So I had belly dancing music. And as they came in, I said, hey, let's do arts, and they loved it. So I think when we give people permission, they
mm,
rise to it. It's all
yeah.
blocked inside of them, right? It's like constipation, right? That's my word of the day, constipation.
How is it that you've because the way you're talking, it feels like you've reached a very different kind of an audience, a very different kind of groups that are taking your workshops. Of course, the very regular artists and performers would also be taking your workshops, but you've reached army men, orphans, sports coaches, how is it that you reached these people?
I don't even think about it because we don't really market.
Mm-hmm.
I think the sports coach is how that happened. Again, it's partly being in Oroville, right? Um, with the sports coaches, what had happened was there was a group from Heritage Experiential School, which is a private school in Delhi, in Gorgaon rather, not in Delhi, in Gorgaon, and they had brought 81 of their primary school teachers, um, and they wanted to experience Oroville. And what we do with MediClown Academy was one of experiences. And I said, well, hello, there's no way I'm going to do 81 people at one time. So let's split it up. So we did 3 groups of 27 people, and we did it at the Tibetan Pavilion.
Mhm.
And this has never, ever happened to me before. Never. I was doing one of these workshops and we were on the floor, we were all laughing and doing stuff. And we also do mirror work. So, really, really intimate work where I'm looking at you. And in my mind, I'm saying, I love you. I love you. I love you. And 4 of them burst into tears. Like, this is after like 2.5 hours, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, what do I do? This is a clown workshop and they're all crying, right? And it ended up being one of the most healing things because what I didn't realize was they had had friction within their group. And this was a real healing time. So after that, many of them came to me. And when I say many, not that many, like about 7 or 8, right, came to me and said, will you be my coach? And I'm like, no, I'm not a coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm a clown. That's the hey, there I said it. I'm a clown, right? But they would still engage and talk to me and whatnot and tell me things about what their daughter is going through, and someone else was suicidal and their marriage. And it was like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. I'm a clown. I'm not a therapist, right? But what I would do with them was I would sort of listen deeply as I do in clown, and I would laugh and I'd guide them through the laughter. Anyway, that happened. So that was a number of years ago. And ever since then, the woman that first met me keeps bringing me back to Delhi or to Gorgaon to do these workshops. So that's how that happened. I told you about how the army happened.
Yeah.
And then with government officials, they happened to come and, someone will say, oh, Fif, can you come and do something? And I'll just do something there. That's how it happened with the guy from the World Bank. So it
Mhm.
was just these happenstances, right?
Yeah.
And then we would end up going to different places. And then, of course, when we received the award for Yes, I Am the Change and to be a change maker, that's what took it all across Pan India. So there's other groups that are clowning, but not in the way that we do, with the mask. We don't wear the big masks, and we've been doing it. Well, I mean, my body of work is over 40 years, right? So I really do know what I'm doing and I do know what I'm talking about. I live it, I breathe it. It's not something that's just I've taken a course here and there. It's like
Yeah.
it's me, right? And I think that's come through. And I think as a result of that, people kept asking us to come. So that's how it happened. My gosh, we even did something for Sterling Resorts. I don't know if you're familiar with Sterling Resorts.
Where is it? I feel like I've heard of it.
Sterling Resorts at that time had 31 or 32 different resorts across India. Okay. And when they contacted us, they wanted us to come and train their recreational staff and some of their frontline staff. And I turned them down. I said, well, no, because they wanted us to do the big shoes, the big mat, the white face, the big wigs. And I said, don't do that, you know? And they kept insisting. And I said, no, sorry. And then we had a manager at that time who sadly has passed away, um, tragically. He said, well, it's going to be money. I think we should do it. I was like, oh God, okay, fine. And so they wanted us to put together a little reel. And
Mhm.
we'd never put together a clown reel before. We put together a reel, shot it in my living room, and sent it off. And then he said, well, let's invite them to Oroville. And I'm going, are you nuts? They're going to come to Oroville? And they did. They wanted to come to Oroville. So we came to Oroville. They saw what we did. And then Nick pitched them this, whatever. I can't remember how much he charged, but it was significant. And so we ended up doing 2 different times of 16 performers or 16 frontline workers 1 year, and then like 2 or 3 years later we did another one. And I think Joanne Rebello wrote about that in the Times of India, right? So that's how it sort of started to go around, right? And we started to expand, not just doing the hospitals. The hospitals is where my heart is at.
Yeah.
It truly is where my heart is at. And to be working with marginalized communities, but it's how do you sandwich everything so that there is a honoring and a respect for the marginalized. And then we've been very blessed to be able to go into hospitals, and to the degree that it PIMS, the chief medical officer, who we got to know quite well, who's now up in Kolkata, said to us, you don't even need to tell me when you're coming in. You just come in and you do what you need. And then with the residents that were there, the interns, yeah, he actually said, you listen to them. They know what they're doing. And it was amazing. I talked a little bit about our manager who tragically passed away. He was in a very, very small accident. He was at a stopped and a truck hit him, and or Vandi is what they call it, and he broke his femur. And Hamish and I were in Chennai at Stella Maris College conducting a 3-week intensive there for the students as part of their credit course. So yeah, that's another thing, being able to do credit courses at universities, right?
Yeah.
And so Nick phones me and said, no, Fif, not to worry, not to worry. Just a small accident. Like, Nick, why are you calling me if it's such a small accident? And it ended up getting to the point where it just grew and grew, and horrible things happened. And he was hospitalized for a really long time, like really long time, being about a month. And when I went to see him, that's when the CMO said to the students, you listen to Fif and Hamish. They know what they're doing. And so the students would say to us, no, you can't be here while we're, putting the drills in his leg. And we'd say, of course we can. And it makes sense for a clown to be there. That's his human right to have someone there. And they would go, oh. And then they would realize that while we were there, we weren't interfering. In fact, we were enhancing what they could do. And so it shifted. It really shifted. And then a few weeks later, when Nick went back in, and I was called in at 7, quarter to 8 in the morning, and Hamish and I raced in. And just as we got there, the heart monitor went zzz. So Nick had died, right? And he was an ortho because of his leg. And the head of ortho was there, and a couple of the students, and they were in tears, and they were saying, this has never happened on my watch. I don't know what went wrong. And me, as the friend and as the clown, was comforting them. And at that point, I hugged them. Didn't matter that they were male and he was the head of the department and I was a clown. I hugged them because that's what you do. So the clown is not always funny and filled with laughter. There's sometimes something that's very profoundly human and sad. I'm not going to laugh when someone is dying, unless they want it. And I have been in rooms where people are dying and they've wanted to laugh. And we've laughed. I was invited for a 10-year-old boy. This was in Canada. I'd followed him for a bit. He'd been diagnosed when he was 3 with lymphoma. And I got to know his family quite well. And when he passed away, um, actually, it was on my birthday. I was out having dinner with Hamish, and we got a phone call. I got paged at 11 o'clock at night saying we're going to take him off of support. Will you come and see him? And I was going to go in the morning, but of course, I said, of course, I'll come right now. So I went there, and the next day, he left his body. And they phoned me and they asked me if I wouldn't mind saying a few words at this little boy's memorial service. And I said, of course. And they said, well, can you come over so we can prepare something? And I'm going, okay, you want me to prepare something with you for a little 2-minute thing? It ended up that they wanted me to MC the entire event, the celebration of life. But not only that, they wanted me to do laughter because I did a lot of laughter with this little boy. And that really helped get his lungs going and really supported him emotionally, mentally, and physically. And of course, spiritually, because he was a boy that came from a British background, but he was still very much into Buddhist philosophy and thought, as his parents were, as I was and am.
I want to dig in a bit deeper here with um with your story with Nick and I also remember you talking about your aunt when you were a lot younger back then, um uh, and you were clowning her, and what is it like to put on the clown mask uh, around people who you are attached to in a very different way? Because I believe going to a hospital and meeting people who you haven't exactly met before would be one thing. Uh, and at the same time, uh, meeting your manager who you've worked very closely with, or your aunt who you so deeply love on a very different level, would be very different. And um, I guess my question is somewhere along the lines of how does your private not come out? How uh, and I guess in some sense you've answered this by saying that you've lived this practice, and you, you live and eat and sleep as the clown that you are. So it's not just by putting on the red nose that you become a clown. But I guess my curiosity is about, does something change when it's your aunt who's so close to you?
If I look deeply into the spirit and if I feel deeply into the spirit, it changes. Of course I'm of course I'm extremely sad. Of course I am, you know, but um I don't even know how to describe it. And my aunt was very different than the manager, than Nick. I'm going to talk about Nick first because with Nick, I had to play two roles, right? With Nick, I also had to be an advocate for him to ensure that he got all the treatment that he needed. But then I also had to be the clown. And what was really interesting about Nick, oh my God, I mean, he couldn't even get out of bed. I mean, his bed sores were absolutely horrible, just horrible. And so, I mean, at one point, we would joke, I would help him roll over and I'd ask him to put his arms around me and I'd put my arms around him. And I go, yeah, Nick, you've been wanting to look down my chest all these years and now you finally can. So we'd find ways to joke about it, right? We would find ways to joke, but then he'd also say, Fif, I'm scared. I'm scared of dying.
Mm.
And I would just stroke him and I'd say, I know, me too. And we would cry together, right? And that would also happen with my aunt and my uncle. I remember my uncle being very, very strict, and I would never open up to him like I did with my aunt. And one day I was with my uncle and I looked at him and I just said, Uncle Joe, I don't want you to die. And he looked at me and he said, I don't want to die either. And we just both cried. And I had a clown nose on, right? And then we walked down the hall and then we just sort of laughed a bit. I don't know, because I think there's a shift. We can choose to stay in this zzz, or we can, how does our emotions shift and change? And where do we come up? Where do we go? And of course, when my aunt finally left her body, there was great sadness, but there was also a celebration of the amazing, beautiful person that she was. And it's because of her I became a clown, because she was a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do I do that? With my aunt, it was very different though, because she was a doctor and she was her own advocate. But when my mom was in the hospital, or you know, friends of mine, I wear two hats because I'm an advocate and I am the clown and I'm a friend, right? So you balance
Mm.
all of it. And I think often people who don't realize the power of laughter, deep listening, clowning, and the wisdom of the clown push the clown away.
Mhm.
But when they realize what's there, it's magical because it's divine. There's a spark of divinity.
It's just so much about love, I feel like the more I try to understand life, the more I realize that it's just a journey of understanding love better and deeper with every passing day.
Manish, is it about understanding love? How do you understand love? Or is it just about being and feeling
Mm.
love? If you ask me to understand love and
No.
talk to my husband at the same time, oh my God, forget that. You know, I love it, but it's like, I can't understand why he does what he does. And I said, oh, he says he loves me, but it doesn't feel that way. And then we have this little, and then we melt down, and then we just be love and feel love again, and then it's okay.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, precisely that. Yeah. Understand is definitely not the right word. And this, yeah, I'm a bit out of words right now. Just talking about all of this. A lot of things are coming back to me. Um, just moments in life that that remind me of when I just felt love or when I was love. And a lot of those moments came to my life after I came across the clown, after I came across the clown's nose. There was something that shifted, and I still feel like I don't think I'm able to always access that state, but somewhere deep down, I know that when I'm too far away from the clown, I have had such strong moments with the clown that I know that the clown moments of love and of the tremendous possibilities of love exist, and whatever this other moment of despair is that I am in right now, with the help of the clown state, I can get out of it and find love again. Um,
Very much so. When I started doing workshops and theater people were coming, and there's a actress in Tamil Nadu named Maya Krishnan, and she took one of my workshops that I had offered at Adi Shakti and fell in love with what we were doing. She had done other clowning with another organization, but had a different experience. And when she came to us, it really opened her up. And we have a little interview afterwards. And this is where I always felt like a failure because people, I mean, I didn't teach you how to do all these funny, clowny things. I mean, yes, it was a byproduct, but at the end of it, yes, of course, I did some of that. But at the end of it, I said, well, what was your big takeaway? And the same thing always came up: self-love. And I'm
hmm,
going like, what? Like, what am I doing wrong here? What am I doing wrong? I want them to say that, oh, when I did this technique and that, and I could do all of this. I'm super, super funny. And they all came up with self-love. And then I began to realize that's pretty major,
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
And
Also,
when you,
I think in a country like India, like I don't know if similar answers would come up in Canada, but but having had some experience of also living outside India for a while, um, definitely self-love is one of the most important things for people to have all around the world. But I feel like growing up in India, you're never really taught that. You don't really come across that concept, because um, very often I feel people spend a lot of their time living either for something in the future or living for somebody else. And it takes people a really, really long time, I feel, here, to just realize that they can just work with themselves, be with themselves.
I don't think it's just in India,
Hmm.
it's here as well. And I think we're going through another revolution. I think self love and the need for self love is not just in India. I believe it's everywhere. And I think in this new generation, there's a new revolution of who am I? I want to love. I don't want to be just part of this like train that keeps moving and moving and moving. And, with everything that happened after COVID, right? And it's like the world fell apart. But no, I'm going to continue. I'm going to survive. Why? Because I need to learn how to love myself. And when I love myself, I can love the people around me. So, yes, people want to make more money, but at the same time, they want to experience experiences. And one of those experiences is love and love for self. Because now in all the self-help groups, you're hearing people talk about mindfulness and meditation and self-love. And Hamish and I look at each other and we kind of go, people are talking to us as if we're mindfulness instructors because we've done it all our life, right?
Yeah.
It's just something that we've grown up with. It's just like with you. Do you mind me asking, did you grow up in what faith tradition?
In Hinduism.
Yeah. So Hinduism is part of who you are, right?
Yeah.
And yet, so many people come to India and they don't understand that you breathe, live, eat, are it.
Mm.
It's just who you are. And I think that's the same with a number of these other different concepts. Self-love, there are so many people that have self-love because they have been loved
Yeah.
throughout. Not that many, but now that's starting to pick up. There's more homeschooling. There's more looking at, we don't want to be part of the society, the culture, the way that it's being portrayed. But every generation goes through that, right?
What do you think is missing in the world of wellness and meditation and self-love, that kind of world, when you compare it to clown? And I think the second part to that question is also, what do you think is missing in the very scientific, rational world of doctors and that kind of world, when you compare that with clown? Because you've sort of been a part of both of those worlds. Um, and it clearly feels like clown is bridging all of these worlds, and is at some sort of sweet middle ground somewhere, which is not very defined, which is why I think it is that sweet middle ground, because it's not defined, so it's always evolving and always changing. Um, but yeah, do you see anything that's missing in these worlds that the clown sort of helps give access to?
I think the clown misses out on some of the scientific stuff, right? So, I mean, Einstein was a total clown, and
Mhm.
we respect Einstein, but we also see his playfulness and his wisdom.
Yeah.
I think Hamish and I bridge clown with medicine because we both grew up in medical families,
Mm.
right? I mean, Hamish's dad was the head of ophthalmology for 40 years and was trained in Oxford. My aunt, as you know, was from Stanley and head of OBGYN. And so when I have met a number of clowns working in hospitals, they are intimidated
Mhm.
by doctors. For many years, I was intimidated by clowns, you know, because I grew up with doctors. They were part of who I was and who I am.
Yeah.
Not so much with not the Pachenko clowns, but the big, white face, big wigs, big shoes, loud costume clowns. There is a sweet spot there. And and I think you are right. I think Hamish and I have this magical ability to bridge all of that. And I think it's partly because we come from different cultures. You know, we tie in Asia, Africa, a Hamish from Europe, and us from North, now both of us from North America. So we're able to meld them, and we don't apologize.
Mhm.
I don't apologize anymore. I don't apologize that I love deeply.
Mhm.
I don't apologize that I believe that peace is possible within myself and within the world. One of my mentors is Dr. Ati Citron, and he was the one who started the medical degree clown program at Haifa University that many of the dream doctors went through. And so this was in, I can't remember what year it was, 2008 or something. And we've been doing clowning forever here in North America. But suddenly, Israel, as Israel can only do, they're fantastic. All of a sudden, they're on CNN and they've got this program and it's a university program and all of this. And I said to Ati, when I met him when he came into Toronto, and I said, Ati, for heaven's sakes, you need to do it in English so that we can come. And it has to be, like a shortened span of time. And 3 or 4 years later, he did that. So Hamish and I went and took that course in Israel. And the dream doctors will go into war zones and do their clowning.
Mm.
So they're not necessarily, I don't know to what degree they're working with the soldiers and whatnot, but they're certainly working with the survivors and the not so survivors of the war, right? But
Mm.
what do you take in with you? You're unapologetic. You go in because you have been given this gift, this divine gift of clown, which is really who you are.
Mm.
That cloud resides in you. Even before you came out of your mummy's tummy, you were there. When we look at babies, we laugh at them. They giggle, they're innocent, they're when they, have want something to eat or drink, it's like, ah! And we give them something, right? When they poop their pants or their diapers, you know, when they're toddling and they fall, we laugh at them.
Yeah.
They're absolute clowns.
Yeah.
And when we can touch that beautiful spirit that not only resides in me, but I can see how it resides in you. And going back to my auntie and Nick and my uncle, or people that I love, when I see them suffering, if I look at their spirit is soaring.
Mm.
Their body is falling apart, but their spirit soars. Their spirit is just whew. So it's love and not apologizing for love.
Did it ever feel lonely to stand up for love um, in places that maybe didn't value love so much, as places very often are? Like, I'm assuming a war zone would, I think, not a lot of cultures um, put love first because there's so much else going on. That's very often, it is very often a trap that you sort of, we put hate first, or we put revenge first, or we put jealousy first, or all kinds of other things. And to sort of stand there and be this sort of pillar of love. Did it ever sort of feel, maybe if not lonely, did it feel exhausting? Did it, and maybe not now, but maybe in your earlier years of practice?
Well, I think in earlier years of practice, there was a lot of ego,
Hmm.
right? I mean, it was all about me, you know. Why don't they like me? Why don't they love me? It's all about me, me, me.
Mm.
And, it's to take things personally, right? And now it's not about me at all. It's
Mm.
about you. So maybe I've grown. Well, of course I've grown,
Yeah.
right? But it's really about what a privilege I have to be here. And I'm just going to send out love and someone can accept it or not. But if I'm grounded or when I'm grounded in who I am, then it goes. But love is also about acceptance, right? Acceptance of the other, acceptance of the circumstance or situation, and of self. The time I feel a little awkward, even today, with love, is I take a lot of time to decide how I'm going to end an email. I usually say with gratitude and love. Now, how do you do that when you're sending a business email? And so I just put it out there, but I've shifted it. I'll usually put with gratitude. I always say with gratitude and loving regards or loving kindness. But I try to put that word in there, but there's still a part of me that going, okay, I'm sending this off and it's a business thing. What should I do? Or at least I'll say kindest, right? So it's not just sincerely or yours truly or just your name.
Yeah.
But there's the intention of love that will go out. And so I think that is critical, is to always, for me, to always have that intention. Though it's not always there, but there's that intention.
Yeah.
World leaders right now, oh my God, I spend so much time, and there's so much anger and hatred, and especially what's happening, well, everywhere. But I have to look at the situation, and I have to send love, their spirit, right? Of course, I don't love what they're doing. Hello, they're destroying all of us.
Yeah.
But I have to feel sorry for them. It's like we've got two little boys over here and just south of the border having a big fight, you know? Hello, come on, get some makeup, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something that clown has taught me as well. I think I think until a few years ago, I was filled with a lot of angst and anger every time something like this would happen in the world. Um, which is also completely normal for it to happen. I think the clowns sort of you said something along these lines a while ago. It's taught me how to see the spirit in the other person, be it the oppressor, be it the villain of the story, be it the sort of quote unquote bad guy. You through the clown nose, you're able to sort of see the clown in them. You're able to see the um and that then offers a very different way of dealing with the situation, um as compared to just fighting back with the same kind of anger and then receiving that anger again. Yeah.
Remember too, you can still have anger, but in a different way. One
Mm.
of the exercises that I do is in our fun shops is we do Bollywood fighting, right? So it's you do the slow motion and I just and you get out your, I did that with the
I do
army
this,
guys. They
I
loved
do
it.
this as well. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, like it's doing that. And then what we do is, you do it real time, then you do it slow motion. And the reason you do it slow motion is so that you can actually feel your muscles and you can think your thoughts and you can do everything. Gives you time to react. Then all of a sudden, fast motion. You go, and then it gets so ridiculous, you can't even remember what you were fighting about. And then when we do that with laughter, and I'm a laughter yoga teacher. So when we do that with the laughter and put that all into the pot together, you begin to reframe the mind. You begin to reframe the body. You begin to reframe, right? So it's, yeah, you can still be really angry in clown. Like clowns should be angry. We should be absolutely outraged at what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we should be outraged. And I'm going to take this little bonker and I'm going to go to Uncle Donnie and I'm going to go whack. Oh, but I love Uncle Donnie. And to have those absolute extreme
Yeah.
emotions and play with them.
Yeah.
Because I think clown also gives us the permission to be angry. To be so freaking angry, I'm ready to strangle someone. And at the same time, to sob.
Yeah.
Just sob.
Mhm.
And then to laugh and to giggle and to play and to feel all alone. and to feel very jealous. Oh my God. One time, Hamish and I were in the ortho, and this young guy in his early 20s had come in, and he was pretty broken, had both his legs up in a cast and his arm and whatnot, and his mom was there. And I don't know why I did this. I have no idea. Because as you know, when you're in clown, something is just a download, right? And you go and you follow your impulse. And I started to flirt with him. Can you imagine a young Indian kid, his mother there, and then there's this clown that's coming in and flirting with him? And he flirted back, and the mother started to laugh, and it was an open ward, and everyone in India, hello, started to laugh. And then Hamish came in and he went, and he pretended to get really jealous, and we had a little scene that was right there. And everyone loved it. We got clapped, and people around, were not saying bravo, but something like bravo. They loved it. But it was like following that crazy intuition to do something.
Yeah.
And another time, again in the same ortho ward, this was in isolation. Hamish takes his auto harp, and we have swinging chimes. And this little lady, she must have been, and her husband was there, she must have been like 4'6". And she was crying, and I just sat down and I looked at her, and then I just opened up my arms, and she came and she sat down on my knee, and she put her head on my sort of just like above my breast, my shoulder, and she sobbed, and we rocked and rocked. And then Hamish started to play something called Kuti Mama. Kuti Mama means little mama, right? And within moments, she was laughing. It was just like, I've got it on one of our YouTube things, because it's like, he was playing it on the auto harp, not the ukulele. It was like, Cootie mama, cootie mama, cootie mama, cootie mama. And that's all we said was cootie mama. And she loved it. And just in that little room, there was 3 of them in the isolation, which you would never have here. You would only have one person, right? But they were all singing along because we had the courage to do this, right? So I think clown, it gives you the permission and the courage to go and do things.
Mm. I want to know a bit more about um, the shamanistic aspect of the clowning that you practice and share. And I've understood that your first trip to India had a lot of encounters with spirituality, and then you went on to do clown through mask. And if I understood correctly, did you do clown through mask again a lot of years later?
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
that happen? Because I've heard that people do, or like you're encouraged to do clown through mask just once. Um, is what I've heard. I don't know, but how what made you do it again?
Intuition. Just
Hmm.
feel like you want to do it. So not only did we do, it's funny because we don't call it clown through mask here. I did it with Jan in 1986, and then I did it with, I've done it twice now, I think with John Turner. And then he also invited us to come back to learn to facilitate, to be teachers, right? So we take people through the process of baby clown,
Hmm.
or a 3 week, 17-day, I can't remember, process of that. So what made us do it again? I don't know. Hamish and I are always looking at doing new and exciting things and whatever.
Yeah.
And we'd seen Mump and Smoot actually when we also were doing a fringe show in Edmonton in 1986, 87, and they were just starting at that point as well. So, over the years, your paths cross. And so it was just time. And then I did a buffoon workshop, in another intensive with John as well. And then with David McMurray Smith, who's over here on the island, not the island, on the mainland. Yeah. but there's something very different about being able to do it in the field. And I would love to do that in Oroville, doing it outside in the open. And that's where I said we looked up and we saw the meteor showers. So you're supposed to have your eyes closed, but your eyes closed are like so that you don't look at the mask. But if you're looking up, there's a different charge that's coming at you in the middle of the night, making this mask, for X number of hours, right?
Wow. I guess the question here also is, what do you call if not clown through mask? What do you call it?
John calls it baby clown.
Baby clown, okay. And that's the same thing of making masks for 6 different directions? Is it something else?
Yeah. No, it's the Richard's way, right? It's the
Yeah.
way Richard taught, right? But each teacher has a slightly different way of approaching it. But
Mhm.
yeah, we do the 6 masks, and um, you go through a whole series of things before you actually make the masks, and I'd mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
So it's taking it from your intuition, your theater games, the different games that you play, you're blindfolded, all of this, then uh, going through each of the different masks, uh, and each mask, as you have done as well, is the 4 directions, then above, below,
Mhm.
right? And then within each of those, you've got the 6 different levels and emotionalities, right? And then through that, you also have, wearing the different, choosing your different clothes.
Yeah.
And, you know, each time you have a different mask, you can go back or even with the same mask, you're
Mhm.
putting on different clothes, because every time you put on something, it has a different energy,
Mhm.
right? So you're feeling that vibration, you're feeling that energy, and that comes out through the heart. So it's a combination of working from outside in and inside out, right? So for me, there's an absolute coming together. So for me, with using, well, from theater, you can come from outside in, or you can go from inside out. And the same with clown, or with anything that we do. Mindfulness as well. You can use a bell that'll take you from the outside into the in, or you can go from in out.
Yeah.
So did you do the same thing with six, the 6 masks, the 6 different emotions, the saying goodbye, you walk down to the end of the pier or whatever, you say goodbye, then you go home, and then
What are
you
6 different emotions? I'm not very sure if that's
just the different intensities. Like every time you put on a different mask, you feel a different emotion, right? So you allow that emotion to play out, and that emotion might just be at a 1, or it might be right up at the level 6.
I guess
So
the way yeah, I guess the way we did it was each mask would have two parts to it. One would be the experience part, and the other one would be the innocence part. Um,
hmm,
and the experience one would be this journey of saying goodbye, the one that you spoke of, and the innocence one would be the journey of going back to your childhood room and finding this toy. So we would create each mask, and then with one mask, we would go on both these journeys, and of course, then go pick out the costumes and things like that for both of these journeys, and then go on these journeys, and then things would come out in these journeys that would then sort of go on to become things in the clown um, turns that we would create. Uh, yeah. Was that similar to what you did?
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, I mean, you have your innocence and you have your experience.
Yeah.
So, if we're to take it in a slightly different way, innocence is also going into the baby. So it's not just your childhood; it's going into your babyhood,
Yeah.
right? Your
Yeah.
your absolute babyhood, and you can even go prenatal, right? And I did that with Jan, where it was almost a birthing process. And then
Mm.
when you get into experience, so experience, I think, is when you tap into that wisdom,
Yeah.
and that wisdom can also be shamanistic. You
Mm.
asked about shamanistic. I'll tell you one little example. Again, in when we were in ortho, um, this man, older man, had broken his leg, and Hamish had chimes and was playing his chimes, and I had my ukulele, and I took my ukulele and I waved it over him, and I waved it over him 3 times, and I just went, and the man said, he goes, "Madam," because they don't know clown, right? And even though I had my nose and everything, he said, "Madam, when you take that violin over me, pain gone, madam, pain gone." And I think that's a bit of the shaman, right? The shaman comes in when brings in the spirits and brings in the rattles and shakes and does all this and releases the spirit. And I
Mm.
suddenly thought, like, oh my God, he's thinking I'm releasing spirits, and in a way I am, but not knowing that I am,
Yeah.
right? And so we have now discovered that that happens a lot. Also, because I create puppets, right? That's part of the workshops that I do. Sometimes I mix the puppets with clowns, sometimes I don't. But when I create puppets in the fun shops that we do, we breathe life into the puppets. And so, my eyes, my nose, their nose. There's a whole process around it. And that is shamanistic. You're taking them through that journey. I have my native drum here that I made with elders here. So I use that drum, and we go through that journey with the different instruments that we have. Um, and we take them from the jungle where they're just little babies that are born, and they go out to play, and they all play together, and then they have this big ruckus and all sorts of things happen, and then the lion comes, and all the sort of drama that happens, and they're scared, and the snake is chasing them, and they're chasing the snake, and that's all going into the animal world, the animal kingdom, the reptile kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So that brings all elements of the underworld
Mm.
as well, right? And then, of course, you have your different, your wands, your staff, whatnot, and empower them. So when you do all of this, I believe it just gives the practitioner uh, a really wide range of emotions and experiences that they can choose to take or leave.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I think when we truly have the courage to love, to be grounded in love, and to allow that love to come deeply from Mother Earth through all of our chakras. And we have that ability as Indians to understand the chakras in a different sense than other people, right? But really build those chakras, really have that pranayama. I mean, here, Western, we're talking about pranayama, but come on, let's go to India and really be pranayama, right? And then allow it to go through. And
Mm.
then you won't need a nose. The nose just is that one element which can either go either way. They can either look at you and laugh and go, "Oh, isn't that funny? Isn't that cute?" Or they can go, "Oh my God, how stupid."
Yeah.
Right? If you can do it without the nose and radiate that love, then there's a real grace and beauty that's there that can pull people together.
Some time ago, I asked you, what's missing in the world of meditation and wellness and in the world of science and rationality. And sort of listening to you and reflecting from my own experiences as well, um, would you agree that maybe playfulness is missing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Playfulness, laughter, fun, joy. I mean, you know that silly joke. Why do angels fly? Because they don't take themselves lightly.
Because they take themselves lightly.
Because they take themselves lightly, yes. There you go, a silly clown. You know,
Hmm.
I authored a book called The Joy of Living Lightly. And a lot of it is from my experiences being a laughter yoga teacher, being a medical clown, just practicing joy in theater, being joy. And
Yeah.
it's amazing that these things that I think are just normal and natural, people are going like, wow, that's expansive. And I'm going, okay. But as a 5-year-old, it's not expansive at all.
Yeah.
It's the way you are.
Yeah. Play is the way you are. Play is the way you understand the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why now they're having more and more playrooms in big organizations like Google and Lego. Well, Lego, obviously, because it's a plaything, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, some of the Southwestern, you know, on the flights that are here, because when we play,
Yeah.
we open our minds in a different way. We let the oxytocin come in. I can't even say the
Oxytocin.
word. Thank you. And
Yeah.
clowns are just real, right? We don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I know with John Turner, he just, you know, rolls his eyes up when there's puppets around because he calls them dolly wigglers, right? And yet, I think sometimes there's a magic that happens when there's a puppet there. And I'll give you a small example. I went into a nursing home. By the way, I have 3 different clown characters, okay? But I went into a nursing home as my community clown because I was on the way to the Calgary Stampede. And I had this dog puppet with me. And a nurse just dragged me over and said, oh, here, can you just talk to this guy? And here was this man in a wheelchair and he was drooling and he was dripping and he wasn't saying anything. And I took my little dog puppet, a big dog puppet actually, and it just went, started to smell the man and went, "Ruff, ruff." The man very slowly put his head up, looked at the dog, and went, meow, meow. And so the dog then became a cat, and my dog puppet went, meow, back. And then my dog and this older man who was in a very high level of dementia went meow, and they had a meow conversation for maybe 4 minutes, and then the man just put his head down again and started to drool again, and I left. And the nurse said to me, that man has been here for 4.5 years. He has never had any interaction with anyone. And I said, he still hasn't. He didn't interact with the clown. He interacted with the puppet. And so sometimes as the clown, we bring in different elements of play. And it could be a puppet, it could be a musical instrument, it could be something that we color together, it could be magic. The clown is the vehicle to channel and to listen and to bring something out.
I think that's a wonderful note to finish this interview on. Uh,
It's quite late for you and you've got a lot of material.
I've gotten a lot. Oh my God. And I think I can still get a lot more. I could do a part two with you to learn more about what are the different things you do in the workshops. And there's just so much more that you've probably done that I've not like really just gone deep into. But I just feel like this is a beautiful note to just end. I asked you for an hour and it's almost been 2 hours. So so I also will be mindful of that. Um but thank you so much. This has been a really lovely conversation. Um I personally am leaving this incredibly inspired, and it's yeah, one of my fears of doing this late at night is that I know that I'm supposed to be sleeping now, but I'm so full of energy now. I don't think I'm going to be sleeping for another 2 3 hours because I'm just filled with so much excitement for and yeah, you've just gotten me um wondering about all the possibilities that even I have with the nose, and yeah, just a lot of wonderful reminders that are that were really necessary. Thank you so much.
Remember too that the clown is also a lullaby. So
Mm.
your clown can be a lullaby and you can go to sleep with your clown in a lullaby. Quite often, Jumpa, that's my clown, in the hospital, um, is brought in so that I can help kids go to sleep.
Mm.
So it's to put everything that you've just had and to know that it's in your heart, to know that it's in all your chakras, in every cell in your body, and just the way I usually end a workshop, whether it's online. I haven't done too many online, but during COVID I did, uh, or a fun shop, is I always end with a sound bath and a yoga nidra. And so we have Hamish plays the auto harp and the Rav Vast. We have swinging chimes. You'll have to come to Oroville and we'll do something.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. So when I've done it in COVID, I did it with a group of approximately 20 kids, sort of high school and going into university, but not quite sure what's happening.
Mm.
And we had a session in the morning for 21 days. And then we always had a session at night. And at night, it was a short yoga nidra session. And I would play music and I would recorded music. And I would just tell them how much I loved them. And I would ask them what were their uh, things that they would want to be. I want to be more confident. I want to be more smart at school. And I would relax them. And then I would say these affirmations to them. And quite often they would just fall asleep. So I invite you just to relax, put some music on, gentle music, have a hot bath. Well, you might not want to have a hot bath because you're in India, but just get clean, drink something, and just lay down and know that you will sleep well.
Yeah.
And all this is there always for you. Always.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Where Are the Clowns is an audio interview series committed to bringing stories from clowns all over the world, thanks to the Clown Spirit Fellowship by Barnaby King and Dan Rudolph. The music for the series is created by Hanna Fleety Ordolin, also known as Mashana, and I'm Manish, your host for the interview. See you in the next episode.